Hey everybody, how you doing? This is a live shot of what will be the scene for, under normal occasions, an incredible event, but it's still an incredible event. Monday Night Football. Listen to me. Monday Night Football. I mean, think about this. Monday Night Football in Las Vegas. I don't mean on television or in some sports book or in your hotel room after a great day out at a convention. No. This game is going to be played on Monday night in Las Vegas at the incredible $2 billion Allegiant Stadium right there, which has been undergoing video board tests in preparation for a glorious day. And look, I don't care what anyone says. I've said it before here. I'll say it again. It wasn't handled correctly by the Raiders or the league in general. But the fact of the matter is, this building that you're looking at has been the dream of a number of people, including Las Vegas Sands CEO Sheldon Adelson, for years. Guy Hobbs of Hobbs On has been involved in planning the public financing for this facility that you're looking at right here, going all the way back to, and he'll correct me if I'm wrong, 2013. This is right now the one piece that Las Vegas needs to have some hope of a rapid economic recovery, because of all cities in the United States, outside of Honolulu, Las Vegas is suffering the most from the pandemic because its economy is entirely tourism based. Sure, there have been a number of efforts to change that, most notably by Stephen Hill, who is the president of the Las Vegas Stadium Authority and is also the executive director of the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Bureau, and is a top flight economic development professional who should be knighted, as far as I'm concerned, for his work in Las Vegas, but that's another story. But the fact of the matter is, as we look away from this and we turn away from it, but before we look away from it, we have to, I have to agree with what Orlando Nunez just posted. Not a Raiders fan, but the stadium is badass. But SoFi is better looking, in my opinion. Go Niners. Mohammed says the deficit was expected even before the pandemic. Yes, but that's not the point. Okay. Read the entire title, Mohammed. And hello? Rob Iman says, once I can get a vaccine for COVID and fans are allowed, I like to see Fresno State play UNLV there. No, look, going forward, this place is going to be absolutely incredible. I mean, again, no question about it. And hey, you know what? What was once thought of as being pushed way in the past could yet again be back into the picture if the Pac-12 says, hey, you know what? Season's on, and we'll do our Pac-12 championship at Allegiant Stadium after all. Okay? That would be huge. Very huge. JW says, I never liked the fact of putting a pro sports team in Vegas. No city fluctuates with the economy more than Vegas. If a recession starts, fans can't afford to go to games. That's absolutely correct. And you say if a recession starts, we're already there. I don't know if you're keeping apprised of current events, but the simple fact of the matter is that our economy has shrunk by a full 1/3 of its size because of the pandemic. Okay? 1/3. And again, no sector has taken a greater hit from this than the tourism sector, the tourism industry, around which you and I both know Las Vegas is based. Now, here's John Akala. Hey, John. John says, assuming Oakland gets an expansion franchise, I'm guessing NFL will have to expand by 2 teams to make an even number of teams. I'll deal with that later. And Rob says Las Vegas Stadium Authority should negotiate with boxing and Ultimate Fighting on holding the bigger fights there. Yeah, but that's not going to solve the problem, okay? Because for every event you negotiate, you got to make sure you'll be able to sell the tickets. You get the idea, okay? Let me give you a look at what essentially is a preview of the next Las Vegas Stadium Authority meeting, okay? And see what is going to be on the agenda and what is the matter of concern. And it's this as it shifts over, and it's about to do that in a few seconds. And as it does, we'll enlarge it yet again. These are the meeting details for tomorrow. The meeting starts at 5:30 Eastern, 2:30 Pacific, and by video conference. And this is the full agenda. Because of this, and I actually made a video blog about this already. They've already, and you can see this is a 15-item agenda. It's quite large. For this reason, let's go through and count. I've got, if you go past the Stadco monthly report, which I'll come back to, you've got the revocable license and maintenance agreement, the addendum to it, First Amendment to the stadium lease agreement, memorandum for First Amendment, memorandum for team use agreement, memorandum for First Amendment, First Amendment to UNLV joint use agreement, First Amendment to non-relocation agreement, stadium parking lease parcel map, stadium memorandum of lease, and amendment to sublease agreement. And you would be correct to ask, why so many lease agreements on here? And the reason is completely simple, and I'll give it to you right now. Because what has happened is this, and I will, by using this revenue report, so you can get a clear idea of what the real main problem is right now. And this will come up in full relief in a few seconds. And there it is right here, okay? As you can tell, monthly room tax revenue, the yellow is what was the prior year. The blue is the current year. And if you look at the bar and you see the lowest of the blues, that's April of this year. And as you remember, the pandemic started in March. So March of this year is the first in this range, in this time series, hey, John Marks, where to make it very easy for you to follow, the gold is bigger than the blue. Now, what's the significance? The gold is the prior year of hotel tax revenue that is used to pay off the $650 million bond issue. Now, before you know it's $750 million, remember, the total subsidy is $750 million, but the bond issue that's being paid off via the tax is $647 million. Okay, why the difference? Because the additional subsidy was just over 100 million was gathered by the tax and called a pay-as-you-go fund, which was given to the Raiders, which is Stadco or Stadium Corporation, to give to Mortensen McCarthy as part of the total funding to build what is now called Allegiant Stadium. That's why, all right? It was a really neat trick that was created by Guy Hobbs and Hobbs-Ong, and the reason that they did it this way was to be able to have a $750 million subsidy, all right? But not have the whole subsidy weight down on Clark County itself, all right? Thus, further ensuring the possibility of a bond default. In other words, by having a smaller bond issue of $647 million within a total subsidy of $750 million, all right, that allowed them to really deal with a very nasty problem. And the nasty problem was that Mark Davis and Sheldon Adelson said, look, we're not going to stay here at the Southern Nevada Tourism and Infrastructure Committee meetings with a 750 million, with anything less than a $750 million subsidy. All right. So the counter that the Stadium Authority, or what was to be the Stadium Authority, but was then the Southern Nevada Tourism Infrastructure Committee, threw back was, hey, look, we can do this for $550 million. And Raiders president Mark Bedane publicly blew a gasket and threatened to have the Raiders walk. An alternative proposal was designed that included this pay-go fund so that the bond issue could be at best $650 million, okay? But the total, it was like a splitting the difference, but the total subsidy was $750 million. And that was their way, suggested by or designed by Hobbs on the public finance advisors to be able to pay for the facility and not run the risk that the Raiders would walk away from the deal. Pretty genius, I thought. They also used a 1.5 to 1 debt coverage ratio. And I have to say, yeah, even though I say it's pretty genius, it was also very risky, because the risk is, well, gee, what happens if you have something like a downturn? No one talked about a pandemic because no one had any right to expect a pandemic, okay? Anything where the economic legs of the entire world are cut out from under it, okay? So, that wasn't, under consideration, if you will. And so it wasn't factored in. And what made the problem even worse was that Jeremy Aguilo and his economics team didn't plan for an intense economic reaction, even during a recession. And the operative term was always, we got this, there's no problem, we got this, which I personally hate. And I hate that because I've done calculations like this many times. And from 1995 to 2001, I worked for the city of Oakland, first as an economic development advisor to the mayor of Oakland, and then heading the bid to bring the Super Bowl to Oakland. And then I had the Emeryville Redevelopment Agency, as well as the San Francisco Redevelopment Agency, as my clients when I first started my economic analysis firm, Urban Economics. And so blah, 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 blah. Meaning I can talk a lot on this, and I'm stopping myself from doing so. But I have been in this situation a lot, a whole bunch. And so you always want to make sure that you account for the worst, that you can show people rosy scenarios, as was done here. It was done in the case of the first Raiders deal in Oakland too. And as a reporter didn't want to show me the bad spreadsheet that he produced and I knew existed, as a reporter as the assistant city manager in Oakland at the time, who was the architect of the Raiders deal. All right. And this time, a lot of the same thought. And what is particularly bothersome for me, just to digress for a moment, is I've been through this a bunch. And it's rather hilarious to watch people who haven't been through it before, like in Las Vegas, think they've got it, and watch all this stuff happen. And I don't mean it's not Schadenfreude. If I express that, okay, all right. It is Schadenfreude. I admit that. Okay, I admit that. Fine. But I'm stepping forward and saying, all right, now that there's a problem, here's a way out of it, folks, because there are mechanisms that you can install to assist with what the problem that I'm showing you right now. All right. And so that's what I'm doing here. So let's go back to this chart, as ugly as it is, and then let's just look at, hey, look, let's look at the the bad news in detail, not so much until your eyes glaze over. All right, down here is, as you can see, there's the monthly revenue, but look for July. It's the line right at the top of the monthly revenue field of numbers, where the FY21 revenue is for July is 1.2 million, a difference of 3 million. All right, a 75% reduction. Okay, so look at the impact. 12-month room tax revenue right here. Okay, that blue downturn is basically the same as what I showed you above, but it's in line. It's been in line form rather than bar chart form, and you can see at the bottom, March 2017 through July 2020, the budget difference for the Las Vegas Stadium Authority is $13,452,647. Okay, now you might ask, you would say, well, Zinni, given that, all right, why is it that you're saying it's 20 million? Very simple, because the numbers that they're showing you here are for July. July wasn't the last time they collected stadium hotel tax revenue. That activity has been continuous to September. So what you don't see are the numbers for August, and you don't see the numbers for September, right? So it's very logical, if we are looking at a $3 million loss per month, to conservatively assume that, hey, you know what, this is 20 million, as opposed to really, I think, north of 20 million, and that there's no indication that the problem dramatically subsided overnight. So we have to go with that. And it's really unfortunate that we don't have real-time numbers here, or closer to real-time numbers, because when Stephen Hill became the head of the Las Vegas Stadium Authority project, and after the deal was signed and the preliminary releases were signed, he adopted a kind of excuse me, let me change that. He was always the head of the Las Vegas Stadium Authority board, with chairman, excuse me. But when he became the head of the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Bureau, he came into control of both organizations that impact the Raiders Stadium. And so he was able to say, I will slow down the rate of data reporting with respect to hotel tax revenue, with respect to the stadium project, so that it basically reduces the spillage of bad news, and it keeps more of the news internal as possible. I don't like that they did that, and it's really hurt them in the end. And here is the ultimate situation where a lot of reputations have been damaged on that end. But look, we have spilled milk. We have to clean it up. That's the way it is. So what's going on is that this difference is only part of the picture. Here's the other part of the picture, and that has to do with that's the revenue report. But then what we are also looking at is the financial report for the facility. And the financial report for the facility, it gives you not exactly the same view, but a sort of if you will, different perspective of it. All right, here it is, and I'll expand this out for explanation. And that's here. Okay, what we're looking at in this financial summary, all right, is this. Oh, John Marks, as they would say, pay attention, forget the design stuff. Look at the hard part. And that's the problem here. Everyone wants to eat the candy, but no one wants to eat their Brussels sprouts. I'm asking you to eat your Brussels sprouts, okay? Now, here are the Brussels sprouts. Stadium project funding. I'm going to quickly scroll down because these numbers have roughly been the same, but what is not the same is here. Stadium Authority finances, room tax revenue. Remaining balance, a negative $12,677,177. All right. And look at where they had to get that money from. allocated uses, operating expense, all right, remaining balance is zeroed out. But then when it comes to, look, waterfall bond debt reserve, $9 million. Okay. That means that, and then look at the remaining balance. All right. That means they're in to deficit on the waterfall bond debt reserve, and they had to actually start digging in to that reserve to pay the hotel stadium tax. And the other note, it says figures are estimated subject to change. And the other is not explained here. But nonetheless, they're deficits. And those two deficits, okay, waterfall bond debt reserve and other, if you add them, they equal room tax revenue remaining balance. So basically what this says is they had to dig into their reserve to pay for the bond monies from the room tax that go to pay off the bond. In other words, right now, yeah, they're in trouble because they're dipping into the reserve. Now, yes, Jeremy Aguilo has talked about how many years or how many months really the reserve can stay afloat. But folks, I said this before, and I'll say it again, and I'll say it again, and I'll say it again, and I'll say it again. This is a 30-year bond issue. And the Stadium Authority must stop its love for these consistent candy-like pieces of information and eat its Brussels sprouts. All right. I know this is a hard something to deal with, but the reason I'm pushing for this is because early on, when then Clark County Commissioner Steve Sisolak was just that, and on the Southern Nevada Tourism and Infrastructure Committee, I wrote in Zinni 62 on a blog, and I made a number of videos about it. I said, hey, you know what? Your bond issue is reliant on a stadium tax rate that's too low. I said it should be at 1.4%. Steve Sisolak said I was wrong, said on Twitter I was wrong, and then the numbers came due. They would have had a bond debt reserve of 10 times larger if they had a tax of 1.4% as opposed to 88/100ths of 1%. All right. All of the calculations, video blogs, blog posts that I've made and repeated and sent to a number of parties were to sound a warning. And the Stadium Authority would have been in much better shape had they listened rather than spent time dismissing my words. Now, the chickens have truly come home to roost. Okay? Now the chickens have truly come home to roost. All right? So, tomorrow, this is on the table. And the question is, okay, fine. How, then you've identified the problem. How should they solve it? And my response would be, well, that's an excellent question. And the solving of the problem should be this. This is the way, what I'm about to explain to you is the way this should be repaired. And it goes just like this. And that for that, I have to go back to the scene that you, I think, all really want to see. That is here. And that is not just not the stadium itself, yes, but more important, far more important from the perspective of what we're talking about here, the area around it, and that's this. Okay, and so here we are about to be in 1 second or so. Not quite coming into relief there. Let's try that again. Let's see here. There we are. There it is. Okay. There. All right. Folks, the answer exists in what you're looking at. This. Welcome to Zenny 62, everybody. What this is are the surroundings, creating a redevelopment zone. Now, for those of you who are going to scream, well, it's a stadium development zone already, you misunderstand. Listen, for about 7 years, I suppose. Yeah, I worked for the city of Oakland, as many of you know, and one of my specialty functions was tax increment financing, revenue calculation for planned redevelopment projects. And basically what that means is, hey, look, if I know a developer is going to build X number of square feet of project over so many acres, then I can calculate what the tax increment financing revenue from that project will be, assuming, of course, all that square footage will be part of it. And then I know the value of those buildings, okay? My powerful advice is simply to have the stadium authority go back to the legislature and ask for an amendment. Hear me out. Ask for an amendment. Hear me out, okay? Ask for an amendment to SB1. And the amendment would then call for the creation of a redevelopment zone, a redevelopment tax increment financing zone that would have a number of properties in it that would in total equal $2 billion, okay? $2 billion, okay? And again, I say $2 billion in total assessed value. Why? Because at that base year, in terms of tax increment financing calculations, if that zone increases in value by just 4% per annum per year, all right, by the 40th year, if you're taking 1% of that tax increment annually and accumulates, that's $1,400,000,000. Now, I know the math works because I happen to have figured out that the math worked and came up to that when I was looking at how much the Oakland Athletics were going to benefit from the already signed into law City of Oakland ability to establish a redevelopment zone at Jack London Square. So, but rather than, size this specific to the Las Vegas Stadium Authority and the environs around the stadium here, all right, I decided for the purpose of a starter, right, to basically take those calculations and apply them to this, because it could easily overlay. Now, for those of you who would say, wait a minute, what if the legislature says, that's tax money that normally goes to schools and everything? The reason you're doing this is to pay for the ability to maintain the bond issue so that, guess what? So that the taxpayer doesn't wind up feeling it. That's the whole point. Otherwise, beyond the 18-month period, I would say more like 14-month period, guess what? They're going to wind up, that bond issue is going to wind up looking for money because there's a general obligation bond, which is already in Clark County, and it's not going to find it because they're already in deficit. It needs another source. Okay? So it's in the deficit, and guess what? The negative becomes the negative again. All right. Okay. Okay. So, point I'm making is that in order to avoid that scenario, which will come if they don't do something absent a government bailout, and right now the White House is not cooperating. Okay. Not so that it's not. All right. We have the ability to save this country's economy. We did it before. We can do it again. It's a matter of want to and policy design, both of which we do not have in abundance. All right. It's like everyone just sort of, oh, this is going to happen to us. And, no, no. In fact, the Stadium Authority is taking action. I had said to you, and I showed you all those leases, but I didn't explain why those leases were on the agenda, did I? The reason why those leases are on the agenda is because they're going to increase Hey, everybody, we had a power outage here. And thanks. We had a power outage. Hurricane Sandy is in that direction by Louisiana, but it's moving inward and it's becoming a storm. And now it's here, parts of it. And so what's going on is it caused some sort of power surge or hiccup, okay? And the result was, well, hey, what was winked out. Stuff happens, man. Stuff happens, bro. Okay. So, all right. So, stuff happens. Okay. So, at any rate, we've got, yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. Let me bring up, by the way, the screen that I had that was open here. So we can get back to commence to our talking, right? Okay. So there we are. All right. So what I was saying is that yeah, I'm fine. Thank you for asking. So what I was saying is that the money that absent anything to do, absent any action, that bond issue is a 30-year bond issue. And again, I emphasize it's a 30-year bond issue. It's not 2 or 3 or 5. Okay. All right. Okay. So where we are is we need to have a system that essentially redirects property tax. That's what this does for all properties in that area. But the reason I'm powerfully saying this is, folks, this is what's going on. All the development all the land around here is changing hands. Okay, it's changing hands, which means that these properties are turning over. They're being sold, and which happens when they're sold, they're being sold at higher than their value. Do you realize that the value of land per acre in the area around the stadium has increased from roughly 1.3 million before the stadium was built to now over 3 million? That amount of money is money that the stadium authority is losing out on the ability to collect, to not only just pay its debts, but also to pay for needed infrastructure improvements around the stadium. See? So so anyway, as I was saying, the reason why, and thank you, John Marks, for bringing that back, the reason why all of these leases are being adjusted is to increase them to add one more year, which gives them one more year tax collection. But I think my idea is better. The reason I think my idea is better is because, look, there's no guarantee that 1 year is going to be enough. All right. And once again, what we're getting into is a situation where the stadium authority is betting on the come rather than establishing a mechanism, all right, to deal with the problem. I am advancing a mechanism to deal with the problem. The stadium authority is betting on the come. That's dangerous. The stadium authority did it once before with a tax rate, and you know what? Guess what? It's doing it again. It's folly. So the stadium authority needs to learn from the error, adjust, and create a mechanism that gets it out of the situation. The mechanism that I'm advancing does just that. Okay. So it's, so I'll take all of your comments right now, and we'll move forward from there. And I'll go way back, and I think where we were here, I'll start. Wow. I think Muhammad was saying, I think the Public Finance Committee put themselves at risk with the hotel tax. Yep. It can really go both ways regardless of the pandemic. Absolutely. And John Marks agrees. And Solly. And so he says, stadium looks great, but SoFi looks greater. Oh, beautiful stadiums. Yes. John Marks says the pandemic really gave Vegas a rabbit punch. And he says, I agree, John Marks, SoFi is nice. It is. That place is the eighth wonder of the world. Woo. Mark says Vegas should have used the 1.5% tax to pay hotel stadium. Yeah, or 1.4 as I had suggested. But yeah. Muhammad says, unlike Vegas, they ignored the school system to bring the Raiders and fund the stadium. Keep in mind, Vegas schools are one of the worst in the country. $750 million could have gone a long way to help the school system. Hey, Muhammad, I need to inject myself into that conversation here. And here's why. I think the best way to explain what I'm about to say is to introduce a conversation that I had with Dave Cavall about Howard Terminal. And I think Dave said it first, okay, on my channel, and in a sense, basically rubber stamped, if you will, the point that I was making. And what Cavall said here, as I bring this up, and I'm going to replace it with replace the stadium photograph with it. All right. But this is my talk with Cavall here. If you can see that, and is it they're actually playing with the camera there, but let me do this. Okay. There. All right. And what Cavall said as this comes into relief, all right? We were talking. Cavall, Dave, welcome to the program. How are you doing?
Thanks for having me. It's an exciting time. We're right in the middle of our sprint season. And obviously, we're moving forward with our waterfront ballpark, so it's great to be here.
Yeah, in that conversation, it's a long conversation.
We've actually had very good products on the field, if you guys know that, and we've still struggled to. We have the approvals that we're going for, and then separately, we have an effort in East Oakland to ensure that that is respected and that is developed in an appropriate way. So they're two separate projects. They exist in their own worlds. We have different legal teams, different teams work. That's a big piece of this thing. We want to do everything in space, and we really want to.
What is the plan for the Coliseum? And
now, look at the team now: Matt Chapman, Matt Olson, Sean Manat.
What is the plan for the Coliseum? And I want to throw on a slider. Is it possible at all? This is just a beg to put the stadium on the National Register of Historic Places and
where the
anyway, you get the idea.
There's Coliseum, the baseball stadium is. So in order to put a
what I'm looking for, folks, basically is in my conversation here, Mohammed, Kaval says, talking about subsidies, and you mentioned that the 750 million could have gone a long way. What he would say is that 750 million would not be there but for, and that's the term that is popular to use in sports business now, but for the existence of the stadium. All right. And remember, Davis had said, hey, look, we're going to leave. And if we don't get this, that created the situation where, guess what? They're using the bond issue to build a facility that theoretically will generate enough tourism dollars. That was the idea, to help, pay it for itself, right? I mean, we can argue for days whether or not that's actually happening. But that was the idea. Okay. And so you would have to engineer a kind of a residual payment system. Now, having said that, the idea that I've developed is such that, or at least I'm advancing and developing, is such that the additional monies that could be taken from the redevelopment area can be passed through back to Clark County to a percentage. It's called a pass-through. We negotiated many pass-throughs between the Oakland Redevelopment Agency and the Alameda County over the time that I worked for the city of Oakland. Okay. And so as a result of that, what happens is that taxing agencies or organizations like in the Oakland parlance, the school system, BART and AC Transit, the flood control district, and so on. And in the case of the Clark County matter, schools. So you could actually target monies for schools, target monies for affordable housing from the redevelopment budget reduction system that I'm suggesting be done. And that would go a long way toward addressing your issue and solving the problem. And that's really how it should have been done to begin with. This is sort of a corrective. Okay, this is an instrument corrective, a financial instrument corrective is the idea here. All right. So and so then Mohammed says, I agree, but Vegas wanted the Raiders. Mohammed says the problem is they rely on one industry. They need to change if they ever want to see a revenue like the Detroit with the auto industry. Or look, they were tried for tech for some time, but that's another long conversation. The San Francisco Bay Area is the Detroit of the 21st century. Television's here, everywhere. Anytime you see something with YouTube on it, that's Mountain View. Or Facebook, that's Mountain View. I think YouTube is more San Rafael, but you get the idea. Not San Rafael, but San Mateo, but you get the idea, okay? And all these places in the Bay Area are represented by televisions in billions of homes around the world. The Bay Area's power, and the Bay Area's economic power, is reflected in you're using Zoom. Think about that. Zoom is based in San Francisco. So the Bay Area, once again, from a tech perspective, wins, but not Las Vegas or Nevada. Could Vegas bring in a Major League Baseball team? But the whole point is that's right now, I think that's a pipe dream. And what needs to be done is they need to pay attention to solving their revenue problems, having the right mechanism first, because people are moving to Las Vegas. People are coming in because of the cost problems in California, but that dynamic is not going to last forever. And the question is Las Vegas and Nevada appropriately positioned for the kind of people it's drawing? And right now I argue no. So Mohammed says they can, but how will they fund a Major League Baseball stadium, increase hotel tax? They're not going to fund it. Not happening. That would take a private sector effort. They're not going to do that again. So, all right. So John Marks says, trying to get your thing up there, John, but it's not happening. Also, yeah. So let me take Dave Cavall out of there. So, it says MLB doesn't belong in Vegas. Okay. What else do we have here? They won't get the A's, maybe the Rays. No, they're not getting the A's. Forget it. The A's are staying in Oakland. And because the A's look, let me put it this way, okay? And I want everybody to pay attention to this. The Oakland Athletics have access to double the subsidy. Double the subsidy, all right? Double the subsidy that the Raiders received in Las Vegas. If the Raiders had not pissed off the mayor of Oakland, they would have had the same deal. Do you hear what I'm telling you? They pissed off the first white female mayor in Oakland's history. That's what the Raiders did. Now, that same mayor wants the NFL back, but she has never been shy, particularly with me, in expressing her displeasure about how the Raiders treated her. Okay? So there are lessons here. Vegas asking for amendment to SB1. Could Shell Nadelson be the next owner of the Raiders? That's two things. Vegas could ask for an amendment to SB1, Clark County specifically, yes. As to for Shell Nadelson, I don't know. Looking at Las Vegas Sands, it could happen. And remember, a negative times a negative equals a positive. Yeah, and this is when you guys were wondering what happened to me. And I'm going to stop soon because this is just lightning out there. Because what the hell? Yeah. It says, anywhere are you? I'm fine. He says, thank you. And I'm back. Yeah, everything's okay. It's a little kind of weird here, I have to admit. All right. You were saying why are some amendments? Yeah. Prayers to you. Thank you. Increase the lease to yes. And worthless desert land. Well, Jay, some of those properties are not worthless. That there's businesses. I'm not saying just the ones that are in the immediate view of the picture, right? But enough to equal $2 billion in assessed value for the first year. I don't know about that. I just work hard, man. And so it says Coliseum should have been used to rejuvenate efforts. I agree. That's the idea, John. That was the idea. Okay, it really was. But that's another long one. Coliseum City. Look at Google Coliseum City Zenny 62 on YouTube. You'll find a treasure trove of stuff. Please do that. All right. Google does overlook YouTube. They tried that, Mohammed, and that didn't work out well. Vegas and the rest of us need help. Nobody expected this virus to hit, but our government does need to help Vegas. Yes. JDW says Portland, Nashville, Carolina will get an MLB team before Vegas. And Mohammed says, I feel all the pandemic did was show where the economic reality is. The majority of Americans are one check from bankruptcy, and we saw that. Yep, that's more than true. And he says, I had Raiders SP had a job before this pandemic hit. No, I just got a email from a friend of mine that said that the future of American economy is people working freelance. My company is based on, client work from all over it. And it's an investment vehicle. Okay. So, knock on glass, we're doing all right, but I'm used to this. I'm used to always trying to find client work. I'm accustomed to it, but a lot of other people aren't. And the government, in order to sustain our lifestyle, is going to have to pay money. It's going to have a bed of a guaranteed minimum standard of income so that we can all live appropriately and maintain what we've got. Otherwise, this is going to go from bad to worse, and it doesn't need to happen. We created this. This is all person made. We can fashion a new economy. We really can. So, will Raiders beat Saints? I think they can. Troy Brown being out is a problem. I think they've got some injuries to deal with. And then Muhammad says, it's time, says, Sean Watson, how you doing? He says, it's time we also take a step back and figure out a financial goal. Separate need from want. Truer words have never been spoken or written. Sean Watson, how you doing, man? You know what? It's 1:23 a.m. now, folks, and we got a flash flood warning. Watch out there. And I got to see what's going on. So I will see you all tomorrow at 5:30 Eastern so we can all check out the Las Vegas Stadium Authority. All right. Please be safe. John Mark says Raiders have a chance to beat the Saints if the defense tightens up. I think it's very exciting. Oh, by the way, if you can't, again, please have a more than a casual watch at my 32-minute interview with A's president Dave Cavall, because you can find out what the A's picture is with respect to financing, and particularly those of you in Las Vegas, so you're not thinking, oh, the A's will come here. You need to listen to my interview here. All right. So can we move with Allegiant to 1K? 1K, I don't understand that one. Man, I late. Yeah, sorry to watch, but I'll be back. Zinni, how do you feel about the Saints? Sean Payton is an awesome coach. I've always loved his coaching ability. The game. And so I think, look, if the Raiders use a no-huddle offensive attack, all right, I think they can come away with a victory. I think they need to blitz, really have blitz packages and press the middle of the Saints defense and cut off a lot of the offensive tackle runs that they like to do, and really pressure them. If they try to play a looser defense, I mean pressure in terms of press or be up close, but I think Tampa Bay showed us what happens if you take the gas off even a little bit with them. They can hurt you real bad. And look, I understand that Michael Thomas is out, but he's not the only human weapon on that offense. So to assume that, the Saints are going to come marching in severely weak because of that, my concern is what the Saints will do to adjust. That's not on video. All right. So, all right. Good night, everybody. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you.